So it seems that Derek Chisora will be fighting Kubrat Pulev for the vacant EBU title instead of up and coming heavyweight Anthony Joshua. Now, I think the fight would have been good for Joshua because I saw that as a really good step up, given the fact that Chisora is an experienced and durable opponent. I mean, he's fought the likes of Vitaly Klitschko in a close 12-round fight, got soundly beaten by David Haye in the ring and in the street fight, and fought the current heavyweight champion Tyson Fury twice. Now, unfortunately for Del Boy, they were actually all losses, but there's no denying he's fought at a very high level, and it would have been a very good test for Anthony Joshua because he's obviously very durable. But for Chisora, there's pretty much two ways of looking at it. Now, although I don't see him ever winning a world title, don't get me wrong, I want him to win a world title, but I don't think he's got what it takes. But I hope I'm wrong. Now, if he loses to someone like Joshua, then it kind of cements his place as a stepping stone for up-and-coming fighters and as a journeyman. Now, at the end of the day, although I like, Anthony Joshua, and I think he beats him, in terms of resume and experience, I think Derek Chisora is higher up the heavyweight chain. I think he just edges it. So if he fights someone who's only had 15 fights, I think he might see it as a step back and also too much of a risk if he loses. Now, I'm hearing that it was because Chisora wasn't happy with what he was being offered and he was actually willing to fight. But I remember him saying something about Joshua not being on his level and that he's not a stepping stone for anyone and he needs to get a few more wins and experience under his belt. Now, on the other hand, if he were to beat Anthony Joshua, which I personally think is unlikely, then it would really boost his profile. But, I think it could potentially be too risky for him. Now, I personally think that it's a good fight for Anthony Joshua because, as I said, Chisora was a durable opponent and he's been up there with some good top fighters. He didn't make the cut, when he fought at top level. But either way now, Chisora's chosen another path. Now, I think the EBU title isn't at all prestigious, but at least it's something. Now, Chisora's been quite active lately against low-level fighters, so this is a much better fight for him as Pulev's a very good fighter and he's a former world title challenger. Now, I don't think it will be easy for Chisora. Pulev has the height and reach advantage, so he doesn't want to get outboxed by him like he did against Fury. Either way, I think it's going to be a competitive fight. Now, Del Boy has had a lot to say about Dillian Whyte recently, calling him a drug taker and as the man who got knocked out by Anthony Joshua. And Dillian responded by calling him a woman beater and a fool, and also made fun of him for getting into beaten up by David Haye basically after the Klitschko fight. I mean, I think I watched the interview on IFL TV and Dillian Whyte was saying it started with Derek Chisora saying Dillian Whyte's not going to last 2 rounds. And then after, he said he came into the dressing room after the fight and he was like, congratulations. And Dillian was like, shut up, man. Get out of my dressing room. Come out. And then he said he opened the door and he see Derek Chisora running down the corridor. But I don't know how much of that is true. But Dillian's still recovering from a shoulder injury sustained in the Brian Minto fight and the Anthony Joshua fight. So you'd never know. I'd like to see a grudge match between them two take place at some point in the future. So watch this space. Now, meanwhile, for Anthony Joshua, I hear he'll be fighting in a title eliminator for Charles Martin's IBF title against Carlos Takam. If Erkan Tepe's drug test comes back positive according to Sky Sports, so look out for up and coming posts about Joshua and obviously the other heavyweight that everybody's talking about these days, David Haye. Now, I heard a very interesting quote from Barry McGuigan about Anthony Joshua the other day, and if you haven't heard it, I'm going to try and read it to you now. He said, I looked at Anthony Joshua and he's also a spectacular talent, but there are a lot of mistakes there, a lot of fundamental flaws with his defense. They've got to get that right because if he fights David Haye, David will knock him unconscious with that right hand. Now, personally, I don't know about knocking him unconscious. I'm inclined to agree. David Haye, as himself said, the guy is entitled to take a few more fights at a higher level because David Haye's been there, former undisputed cruiserweight champion, and also he's been heavyweight champion, two-time world champion. And I think the reason why David Haye um, wants to fight him is because those flaws are there and they're there to be taken advantage of and exploited. Where in a year down the line or less than that, I mean, Anthony Joshua will improve. So maybe David Haye's trying to get in there while strike while the iron's hot. But I mean, I personally think David Haye would probably beat Anthony Joshua because I just think. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of AJ and I would love for him to win a world title, and I can understand why the public could be annoyed at Haye for, the Tyson Fury saga, withdrawing from the fight and the loss to Klitschko and blaming it on his toe. But we can't deny that Joshua has yet to fight anyone who's really tested him except for Dillian Whyte. And we all know what happened in the second round. Now, I mean, personally, I think he recovered well. And in my eyes, he passed the stamina test. But from what I see from Joshua, he's a guy who really uses no head movement and depends on his power a lot by coming forward. So, if he gets tagged by a bigger puncher and a quicker puncher, it's not the punches you see coming, it's the ones you don't expect. So if David Haye, explosive as he is, gets him with a good shot, then you never know what might happen, But either way, that's a fight I would love to see. I'm also glad to hear that the British Boxing Board of Control didn't allow Frank Bruno to fight again. And, I think it was a wise move. Since we're talking about the current British heavyweight stock, I just thought I'd throw the legend who is Frank Bruno into the mix. And at 54, I don't think it was a wise decision for him to come back. But he was battling from depression. And, for me, when you're struggling like that, boxing can really, rejuvenate you because you're back in the mix. You're feeling fit, you're feeling strong. And, I don't know if anyone's listening who ever trained in boxing before, but, it is addictive. And, if a boxer or a fighter gets himself to that level where he's training every day and he's feeling fit, he's feeling sharp, he feels good about himself and he just wants that buzz. He wants to get back into the ring and really hear the roar of the crowd, that excitement, all eyes on you, stepping into the ring and just reliving those glory days. But I think, unfortunately, it's just not a wise move. So, I think if they were to kind of give him a few exhibition fights, maybe, then that might be good, like a charity event or exhibition, or raise awareness for people suffering from depression, something along them lines, then that could potentially be a good thing for Frank Bruno. But either way, I hope that, he's on the road to recovery and he stays upbeat like this and he finds something that can help him with his depression and battle his depression. His son actually boxes as well. His son has had his first amateur fight not long ago. And he's big like Bruno was. So still early days. I can't remember his name, but you never know. I mean, we've got the likes of Collins Jr., Eubank Jr., Nigel Benn Jr., Frank Bruno Jr., and you never know. Imagine watching them all fight in a few years' time. Well, obviously, we've got Collins and Eubank who already fight, but yeah, Frank Bruno's son also boxes. So watch this space. Anyway, please comment, share your thoughts. Most importantly, subscribe. Thanks for listening.